Mr. Nova Scotia Know-It-All Bruce Nunn joins us now with his season finale, a story of wartime survival, a Nova Scotian veteran who made it home against all odds. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Claire.
So just what kind of odds was this war veteran up against?
Well, just incredible. I mean, I think this particular veteran needed at least 9 lives to get through the dangerous twists and turns of his wartime survival. He just had bad luck everywhere he turned. However, he had just enough good luck at just the right times, and I guess that's why he's here today, to be able to tell this incredible story.
Sounds intriguing. Just when and how did this good luck, bad luck wartime story begin?
Well, it all started with a massive bombing run in a plane over enemy territory. April of 1943. 900 Allied bombers flew in formation over Germany.
And all the while we were getting peppered with anti-aircraft fire.
Sergeant Ian MacDonald of Lourdes, Pictou County, was the bomb aimer on the plane.
Left.
It was his first and his last bombing mission.
And on the way in, I was saying to them, my God, there's no way we're going to get through this without getting hit. Because they were hose piping the stuff up there.
Bomb doors open.
Their bomb load dropped. MacDonald's plane was heading home, chased by enemy attackers over France.
I was up in the nose, and I looked out the side, and I could see his tracers coming right up beside me. And I cringed away from them.
Their tail gunner took out that attacker, but it wasn't long before yet another German plane moved in with guns firing.
Anyway, he did a good job on us that time and set us on fire. Then we got the order, bail out.
Falling through the sky, MacDonald couldn't tell if his parachute was properly attached.
And I thought I was just hanging on to it. And oh my God, I didn't clip it on right. What am I going to do? I said, hell with it. I can't wait any longer. This ground's coming up too quickly. And I ripped it open and just banging like that, nice big white billowy parachute up over me.
MacDonald had landed in France. He spent the first night in hiding. The next day, he found a friendly farm couple who gave him civilian clothes and a place to sleep. They introduced him to Madame Gilberte Zani, a French underground leader. Through her contacts, MacDonald soon met another airman on the run.
I looked, and I got it turned out to be my navigator, Parkinson. I said, oh, God.
With Madame Zani's help, he and Parkinson ended up on a train heading south, holding fake French ID cards as a German soldier came down the aisle.
My turn came, and I showed him my identity card, and he took a few minutes looking at it, and I was afraid he was going to question it. But he didn't. He passed it back to me. And
after 3 months on the run and many close calls, he and his buddy found themselves close to the safety of the Spanish border when they realized their new guide had set them up.
As we were driving up, then 3 Germans step out from behind the bush with their rifles at the ready and halt, you know. That was it. Ball game over for us.
Sergeant MacDonald spent the next 2 years in 6 different wartime prisons in France, Poland, Lithuania, and Germany.
A lot of French underground prisoners there that were being interrogated, unmercifully interrogated, beaten till there wasn't any spot on them that didn't have a bruise, and they'd be taken and thrown back into your cell with you.
But in April 1945, during a long march of prisoners deep into Germany, MacDonald and some others cleverly slipped away.
We said, okay, we know where West is. Let's start walking towards our own troops.
They hid in woods for 2 weeks and then ventured out again.
And we heard a lot of raucous singing going on. And turned a corner, and here was a whole bunch of Russian prisoners of war, all hepped up on vodka, I guess, and they were as happy as you could ever hope to see anybody. Yeah.
The war was over. The young prison survivor came home to his family in Pictou County. But his war story was not over. The conclusion came 28 years after he was shot down. In 1971, Ian MacDonald and his wife returned to France, for a surprise visit to the small village store run by his wartime savior, Madame Zanny. She had been decorated for saving 46 Allied men during the war. Sergeant MacDonald was the first. As a surprise to him, Madame Zanny led MacDonald to a site in nearby woods where he was shocked to see the old wreckage of his downed plane.
It was an unbelievable experience to know that after 28 years, that thing's still sitting around there.
Back home, mounted pieces of his plane keep his wartime memories alive. Memories of Madame Zanny and the dedicated French underground movement who helped keep young airmen like him alive in that tense and turbulent time of war.
Fascinating. So now, did Mr. MacDonald maintain a relationship with Madame Zanny?
Yes, she has since died, but they did stay in touch for many, many years there, and they had a very close bond. In fact, at one point, she came over here to Halifax to visit Mr.
Really?
MacDonald. That's right. And they had a great time together. But it's interesting to note that he told me this is a story that he rarely tells to anyone else, even to his own family.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we're certainly glad that he shared it with us.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, that was your last story for us, for this season at least.
That's right.
But you have brought us some amazing, great stories over the winter, so thank you so much for being here each week.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks again.
Okay.
Mr. Nova Scotia Know-It-All, Bruce Nunn. Coming up next is Sports with Andy Campbell. What have you got for us tonight, Andy?
So, well, let's begin at the beginning then.
Now you tell me where's the beginning.
I'll tell you. Okay. Well, let's begin up in the air. You were flying in formation.
Okay, you want to go back there.
Can you start there?
All right, yeah. We took off with our full bomb load and were to circle up over the aerodrome until all the rest of them got in the air. And we waited around till they did all get in the air, and then we all joined together and headed for Stuttgart in Germany. Yeah.
How many planes? Okay. Now, as I remember, Ian, you were telling me there were there were a lot of planes.
All right. I would say around 900. Yeah, maybe 800 and plus, I don't think there was over 9, but between 8 and 9, yeah. Anyway, we gathered together up over Yorkshire, I guess we'll call it, up in northern England, yeah. There was a lot of Bomber Command aerodromes up there. And we headed for Stuttgart. And this would have been, I would think, I'm beginning to forget, but I would say it's around 9 o'clock at night or so. Starting to get a little dark, yeah. This is April, mind you, and double daylight saving time in April in those war years, yes.
Okay.
And
So you were flying over France.
say it again.
Were you flying over France?
Right, we're heading for France now, yeah. I'm going to be flying over France for a portion of the trip, yeah. And anyway, it was going over the English Channel that we were previously instructed to turn on the heater units for the bomb bay so that the linkage wouldn't freeze up when you went to push your button to drop your bombs, yeah. And just shortly after I did that, I thought nothing of it. I just did it routinely, and then somebody in the aircraft was reporting smoke. I can smell smoke, and of course that got everybody up on edge and wondering what's happening. And the pilot said, "Okay, I can smell it too. We better turn back." So he did his about turn. We started heading back, and then it dawned on me what it might be. And I told them that I think now that I remember, it could be that I just switched on the heating units for the bomb bay. And, well, the pilot bought it. He said, that's all right then. We'll assume that's what it was, and we'll turn around and go back. And consequently, we got left alone on our way. And
you were trailing behind.
We were trailing, yeah, no question. Yeah.
So as you approached the rest of the formation, what did you see up ahead of you?
All right. There was a little bit of flak as we crossed the coast going over France, some flak there. And then it was a couple hours or so, 2 or 3 hours before we got to our target. And of course, from my vantage point, I could see the glow in the sky. The main force had already gotten there and started the fires going. So for us, it was no problem to identify where our target was. And we started our run up to the target, and it was me up at the front saying, right, right, steady, left, steady, and all the while we were getting peppered with anti-aircraft fire. Got caught in searchlights and had to do a little bit of evasive action to get out of them. And suddenly we did get hit and lost one motor out of 4. Yeah. Anyway, we continued the bomb run. I dropped the bombs, and then we said, let's get the hell out of here. And on the way in, I was saying to them, like, God, there's no way we're going to get through this without getting hit, because they were hose piping the stuff up there. Yeah. And anyway, we did get hit, and then but we got out and set course for home. All right, everybody settled down then, and everything was fine for about a half an hour, and the rear gunner said, no, it wasn't the rear gunner, it was me. I spotted a Junkers 88 underneath us. And then this other chap in the crew there, Wally Reid, he was also watching through a bubble in the bottom of the aircraft. We only had the rear guns was all we had. And the fellow down underneath us would stay underneath us. I'd tell the pilot to gun it a bit to go ahead to see what would happen. Firstly, I was hoping that he doesn't see us, but he's just there coincidentally. But anyway, I said, pull ahead of him, and he did, and the bugger kept right underneath us. I said, all right, now drop back and see what happens. And he did drop back, and the other guy dropped back. I said, oh, no, he knows we're here. So we're sitting ducks, and there was no question that he was going to take us out. And this went on for about 10 minutes. It seemed like 10 hours. We were playing games with him. And then I said to the rear gunner, I said, look, we'll fly a bit ahead of him, enough so that when you depress your guns as far as they'll go, you could hit him. So the pilot did exactly that. He went ahead of him, we got ahead of him. The rear gunner depressed his guns as far as they'd go, and he let go. And as soon as he did, the bugger came right up behind us, sat right on our tail, and both of them, our guns and his guns, were flailing at each other. And like I told you before, I was up in the nose, and I looked out the side, and I could see his tracers coming right up beside me. And I cringed away from them, looked out the other side, and they were just as close on the other side to me. So, and they were all converging at a point just up in front of me. So he was really, really right on our tail. But then that seemed like a half an hour exchange there, although it was only probably 15, 20, 30 seconds or so, but it seemed like an eternity. And finally our rear gunner said, I got him, I got him, I got him. God, he could hardly miss him. It was just a stupid place for that guy to come. Right, the only guns we had. And anyway, all right, that was fine. We all took the rear gunner's word for it that he got him. And so we lost a motor again out of that exchange. So we had 2 out of 2 now.
You were on your way back to England?
We were on our way back, yeah. And everything was going fine. We were maintaining height, and we weren't trying to gain any height, but we were maintaining what we had, which would be maybe around 13,000, 14,000 feet, somewhere there, yeah. Anyway, we all settled down and we're fine. We're on our way home. And about, I'd say, another half hour or so later, the rear gunner popped up again and said, oh, here comes another one. So, all right, we were sitting ducks, just 2 motors, and we had to fly it straight and steady. And he didn't waste any time. He came right up behind us, and bang again, he opened up with all he had. And I didn't see what type of an aircraft that one was. He came right at us from fully astern. Anyway, he did a good job on us that time and set us on fire. So he broke off when he saw us in flames. He just let us go.
So you all had to bail out?
So then, all right, yeah, then we got the order, bail out. He knocked another motor out on us, saying now we only had 1. And that caused the plane to go in a circle. He couldn't trim it like to fly it straight, no. Anyway, he wasn't too interested in that at that time. He was only interested in getting the hell out himself, because that was it. We had to get out, yeah.
How hard was it to get out of the plane?
All right. According to our training, the bomb aimer was the first out. And I was laying right on the hatch up at the front anyway, so... and the navigator was right next to me, and he was next out. Anyway, we didn't wear our parachutes in those flights. We had them on a rack beside us. And we all had to snap our parachutes on the front of our harness. And
how hard was that?
no, that was a fairly easy maneuver. You just picked it up and you snapped it on. All right, I did that. I had to sit with my back to the nose, dropped my feet out the escape hatch, and realized, doing all this, I realized that I still had my helmet on, and the intercom cord was there, and I remember they always told us to get rid of that because there's been a history of fellas hanging themselves on that intercom cord. It would get caught somewhere in the aircraft. So when I thought of that, my feet hit the opposite end of the escape hatch. I still have scars on my shins where it banged up against the other side. So I pulled my feet in to get the hell out of that mess, to get my helmet off. And I can remember the navigator hollering at me, "Jump, Mac, jump, jump, jump." He thought I took cold feet or something, you know. And but I didn't waste any time. I just ripped my helmet off, fired off, and out I went. There was a big red glow all around me in the sky from the airplane. And as I fell, my feet were up like that. The parachute was there, and I could make sure that one was hooked, but I couldn't make sure that the second one was hooked. And I said, "Oh God." That's
the part about falling? You were falling, but you couldn't tell it was on you?
The chute kind of come up like this on me. The slipstream was doing it, and I thought I was just hanging on to it. And I, oh my God, I didn't clip it on right. What am I going to do? So that, like I was saying, I could make sure that, reasonably sure, one of them was hooked. But I didn't know about the other, and I said, hell with it, I can't wait any longer. This ground's coming up too quickly. And I ripped it open, and just bang it like that, nice big white billowy parachute up over me. All right, during my descent, the guy that shot us down made one circle around me. And I started to wonder, are those stories I heard true, that they will pick you out? But, fortunately, no. And anyway, I wasn't in the air that long after I pulled the cord. I just very short period of time, and I saw the ground, and I knew I was getting close, so I picked my head up and started looking around again, and all of a sudden, bango, I hit.
Where did you land?
I landed in a nice new grain field. And this was the middle of April, and it was surprising to me, a Nova Scotian, middle of April, seeing a nice new grain field, yeah.
You were near that canal? Near the canal?
Yeah, of course I wasn't aware of a canal at that point, not then.
Okay, so you eventually got hooked up with this Madame Zanni?
All right, then I landed in the field. I had to sit up against a tree to collect my thoughts together. What in the hell's going on here? Where am I? Am I in France? Am I in Germany? Am I in Belgium? Or where in the hell am I? I don't know. I gathered up my parachute, walked into the edge of the woods on the edge of that grain field, and buried my parachute in some mulch that was there, old dead leaves and stuff. And I chose to just stay hidden there for the rest of that night, knowing that they could easily be out there looking for us. And so I stayed hidden, and I cut. The next morning, it was a beautiful day. Just you couldn't wish for a nicer day weather-wise. And I cut the epaulettes, all my insignias off my uniform to make myself look as unmilitary as I could. And stayed there all that day. I heard two farmers out in the field. And firstly, all I was hearing was whoop, whoa, whoop, whoa. He was driving a plow, I guess it was. And I was trying to figure out what the hell language, and that meant nothing, eh? Whoop, whoa, it sounded like English, yeah. And a friend of his came along, and they started to talk, and I could identify French. So I said, okay, I'm somewhere in France. So,
okay. Well, let's stop there and skip forward.
Yeah, okay.
To
all right. Then I started walking that night. I'll speed this up a little bit.
Okay.
I started walking that night when it got dark enough, and I kept the North Star at my back. I was going. My plan was to walk to Spain and get out that way. But as I walked, I knew it was hopeless effort to try and do that on my own. So I said, I'm going to have to get help, that's all. So I did, about 11 o'clock at night, saw a light, and I made my way towards the light. And it turned out to be a farmhouse. It I walked in through a big gate that had a little door in the gate, and I walked in there, and a dog come after me. I tried to shush him down, and I kept walking up to the front door of the farmhouse, and I could see a light, a lamp. It was lamps they had then, and this lady opened a window upstairs, and her little daughter was clinging to her, and I saw her looking very askingly, what the hell are you, who the hell are you, what do you want, sort of thing. And I said, Je suis anglais et j'ai soif. I'm English and I'm thirsty and I want to drink. So she came down and she let me in. And she fed me. And while I was eating at her table, the dog started barking out in the yard again. And she got scared, and then she settled down and said, oh, mon mari, her husband, he had been out to neighbors, I guess, yeah. Anyway, he did come in, he saw me sitting there, and he was, what's going on here? And she explained to him what had happened, and then they said, would you like to stay here for the night? And I said, yeah, okay. So when I woke up the next morning, there was a fella came up to my bedroom, and he had a French-English dictionary with him. And he had a bundle of civilian clothes. And he asked me if I would like to escape. And I said, sure. Okay, he says, here, you change into these clothes and meet me downstairs. So I changed into civilian clothes then and went downstairs, and this is where I met Madame Zaney. Yeah, she was there. She said she had 2 bicycles, and one was mine, and just to follow her. She said, don't drive with me, keep me in sight, follow me behind me. So anyway, that's what I did. I went by bicycle to her farmhouse. And
she was going to try to get you to Spain?
Mm-hmm.
Was she trying to get you to Spain?
Well, all right, that was actually what the underground said too, that was what the route they were going to choose, was to get me to Spain.
So what did you need to do that? Some fake ID, some clothes, train ticket?
That's right. That's right.
Can
Now, all this, I was kept in waiting by the underground at Dr. Lupinoff's house there. He himself was also in hiding. And I stayed at his house for about a month or so. Month and a half, I guess, yeah. And
so maybe you can summarize, Ian, the next couple of months was on the run.
All right. The underground got me into Paris. And in Paris, I was holed up at another underground house. And it was there that I was taken out to get my picture taken for my identity card. And
a fake one.
Fake one, oh yeah. But it had to have a real picture, so I had to go out. And that was just a young girl, about months younger than myself, that took me out. And what a chance she was taking to take somebody so non-French as me out to get my picture taken. But she says to play deaf and dumb. The dumb part was easy. Anyway.
So you went from hideout to hideout, did you?
Oh yeah, right, hideout to hideout. But anyway, I want to add at this point that girl that took me out to get my picture taken got in touch with me after I had made my visit back to France, back when I got the artifacts there, yeah. And she saw this in a newspaper that was reported over there in the newspapers, and she got in touch with me. And just a few years ago, she visited me here. Yeah. But I'd never be able to repay her for what she did for me, no. But anyway, all right, this is all with my friend Parkinson that's in those pictures there, yeah. We finally got ourselves organized with train tickets. Had to go by train from Paris down to a place called Pau, way down in southern France. And it was during that train trip that we got challenged to show our identity cards. And we knew it was coming. We were full of apprehension that we're not going to make this. They asked us too many questions. We didn't know French that well. We could have been spotted right easily that we weren't French, yeah.
Did one of the Germans look at your ID?
Oh yeah, they go through the train and everybody gets a check, yeah.
What happened?
All right, my turn came, and I showed him my identity card, and he took a few minutes looking at it, and I was afraid he was going to question it, but he didn't. He passed it back to me, and Parky, my friend, it was the same thing, and there was three of us at this point, another McKinnon fellow from Scotland, and we all got by all right. We breathed a sigh of relief there, yeah. Anyway, we pretty much got tripped up again when we got into a place called Pau. They put us up in a hotel overnight to wait for another underground member to take us down to the Pyrenees, to take us over the Pyrenees into Spain. And the hotel keeper didn't understand who in the hell we were, and we were under the impression that the underground informed her who we were and that it was going to be all right. Anyway, we wound up through the middle of the night worried that she's going to report us and they're going to come and fetch us. So anyway, the next morning, this is after we even went to the dining room that evening and had a meal off them. And
so somebody gave you up?
The next morning, we got the hell out of there. We went right by the desk and never said a word. We just went out the door and lost ourselves in the crowd out in the street, because it was right in the middle of this town, yeah. And we had to spend the rest of the day there mingling with the crowds outside, and lots of German soldiers, all kinds of them down there. And we had to make ourselves look as French as we could. Anyway, to make a long story short, we got boarded, piled into the back of a truck.
Right.
And drove by truck down to a little town called Oloron down in southern France. And there we met up with a guide that was to take us over the Pyrenees. So we slept there that night. The next day, I don't know, it must have been about 4 o'clock in the morning, we got on the road, and they told us to walk very quietly, don't make any noise. So we had to kind of tiptoe out of the town. And we picked up a second guide then that was supposed to be even more knowledgeable of the passageway through the Pyrenees, because it was heavily guarded. Well, anyway, we got up to the top of the first range of the Pyrenees, got disoriented in fog, started back down, and what we thought was the other side, and it turned out to be the same damn side we went up. And we were back where we started at the bottom of the mountain. And it was a case of pulling yourself up by trees. It was pretty steep, you know, and there was parts you couldn't climb it. You had to grab tree by tree by tree to get up. Mm-hmm. It's a good job we were young. Anyway, wanted in this segment now? Is that?
Well, we can do it.
We can do it now.
Sure.
It's up to you, Bruce.
Because you were traveling with
you can
Is
ask.
there a picture of Parkinson there?
Yeah.
You could ask me when we met up, and that would
Okay.
give you some continuity there.
And how did you meet up with him?
Well, all right, Parkinson. I was taken to a house in Flavy-les-Martel, I guess was the name of it, and it turned out to be a doctor's house, and that fellow was hiding with his wife in that house, although it was his house, and he really had a doctor practice there previous to the war, I guess. And a couple of days after I'd been there, I looked out the front window, and a truck pulled up out front. And I was watching to see, I was a little apprehensive, what the hell is this going on? And a fellow got out of the truck, and he walked up to the gate. There was a gate leading into the property, and I looked, and God, it turned out to be my navigator, Parkinson. I said, oh, God. And he didn't know I was there, and I was smiling to myself. Look, he's going to get a surprise when he sees me here. And he sure did. When he saw me, God, he couldn't believe it. How in the hell did you get here, sort of thing, you know. But anyway, that's how Parky and I got hooked up again. He also hid in the woods, and he said at one point he could have reached out and touched the German's boot. They were that close to picking him up. But he just stayed quiet, and they moved on, yeah. Yeah, 4 got picked up, and Parky and I were okay. We evaded capture, yeah.
So of all the people on your plane, how many of them were captured?
Well, that was 3 that were captured. 1 died. 4 that were captured. 7 altogether. Parky and I were evaded capture, and the rest, 1 died, and the other 4 were picked up, yeah.
So you and Parkinson were traveling together.
That's right, yes.
All right, so he was with you when you were climbing the mountain?
Yes, Parky was with me climbing the mountains, yes, yeah. Anyway, all right, I'm going to go back then. We come down on the same side, eh? And the guides, the underground guide said, well, look, this fellow obviously is not as sharp as we thought he was. I'm going to go back. I'm going to leave you fellas here. And there was an old deserted farm shed there, a barn. He says, I'll leave you fellas here, and I'm going to go back into town and get another guide. So you fellas stay put, and I'll be back tomorrow. All right, what else could we do? There we were at their mercy. So we reasoned, all right, the underground passed us over to these fellas. They must be okay. They know what they're doing. So we went along with it. And the first day he didn't show. Second day he didn't show. And we were getting the wind up by it. And we used to pass the time. We were in an old farm field where this barn was, And we used to go out in the day and we'd promenade up and down the field because there was no other farms in sight, nothing in sight. We were pretty isolated. So on the third day, we were out promenading up and down the field, and we heard what was unmistakably the sound of bloodhounds, eh? You know how they barking and oh God, we said that there's some dogs that are out to get us. And sure enough, they were. And we headed for the edge of the field, and there was a stream over on the edge of the field, and we got into the stream, and we ran up the stream 100 feet or so, and then crossed over and up into the woods on the other side of the stream. Looked back, and by Jesus, there were the dogs with the Germans going up and down the field. He was smelling our trail going up and down the field, barking like crazy. And we're, oh God, they're out to get us for sure. So we just buried ourselves in the woods as much as we could, but wanted to keep an eye on that field too to see what would happen. And it turned out that what we did was right. We broke the scent at the stream, and that frigged the dogs up, and they had to give up. Great. Well, we didn't come right out, I'll guarantee you that. We stayed there. And that was towards evening that we said, well, all right, we'll transit again, we'll go back out. All right, we were all right. Everything was fine. And then the next day, the guide came back. And he says, look, I have a vehicle, a car out on the road out here, and I'm going to drive you down the highway to the next town where I got a new guide who was going to pick our way through the Pyrenees. So that was great. Okay, we'll go along with that. And we get out, and we had to push him. It was a wood-burning vehicle he had, and he had it stoked up, and we had to push him out of his parking area out onto the road, and then we all jumped in, and off we went down the highway. We were on our way to freedom. We got to a spot in the highway. There was a swift-flowing river on one side and steep mountain cliffs on the other side of us, and then there was a bushy area right up against the cliff, and as we were driving up, then 3 Germans step out from behind the bush with their rifles at the ready and halt, you know. That was it. Ball game over for us. So, I don't know, we were caught in civilian clothes, so they treated us as spies. And they made us lay on our belly on the ground and searched us. And all the while that they were going through their routine with we 3, the guide that was driving the car was talking very friendly with them and everything. So it was easy to put 2 and 2 together and say, that son of a bitch, he tipped them off, had them waiting right there at that spot, and he effectively turned us in, this guide, yeah. So anyway, all right, I went from there to a prison cell in Pau, and we were kept apart to put us in solitary, and it was a scary place because there was blood stains around the walls, on the floor, and all that sort of thing, and we were saying, God, what are we going to get into here? Anyway, they handcuffed the 3 of us together and put us in another vehicle and took us into Bordeaux. And we were thrown in, three of us were thrown into a cell together then. But that was also another god-awful place too. The guards were nasty, we'll say, cranky bastards. And well, they kept us there for about a week, I guess it was.
How did they treat you?
No, they were bullies, bastards, yeah, and the odd kick and stuff like that. But looking back now, not too bad. But at the time, you didn't know how far it would escalate, you know. Yeah. So we just said, those fellows are picked for this job. They're yeah. Anyway, all of a sudden they came and handcuffed us together again and put us in the back of a truck and off to a railway station in Bordeaux, and we were headed then for Paris. We didn't know where in the hell we were going, but...
Where did you end up in Paris?
And then we wound up at that Friend prison in Paris, that one that I showed you there, the pictures of, yeah. And
what's it called again?
Friend, F-R-E-S-N-E, Friend, yeah. And that was a very morbid place to be too. You were thrown in with a lot of French underground prisoners there that were being interrogated, unmercifully interrogated, beaten till there wasn't any spot on them that didn't have a bruise, and they'd be taken and thrown back into your cell with you. And one fellow I can remember, he was so put off with it that he was going to be taken out this morning for an interrogation, and we were up on the 4th floor, and he went out and just wasted no time. He just jumped right over the rail, and that was the end of his misery. Yeah. And there's others with us that we'd ask what happened to them, and they just tell us they were taken out and shot. Yeah. So it was the atmosphere in there that really, really, really dragged you down, yeah. And the guards there were picked for their nature, eh? Yeah.
How about you? Did they lay a hand on you?
No, that we got interrogated there trying to find out. You know, it was the Gestapo that had us, and they were trying to find out who helped us, where they lived, where they lived. But all we had to tell them was our rank, name, and number. And for descriptions, Parky used his mother and father for descriptions. I used my mother and father, so that they couldn't trip us up on subsequent interrogations. And well, finally, after several months, they gave up and let us go to a proper prisoner of war camp. That was in Frankfurt. And it was in Frankfurt when we got shipped there that I met up with Wally Reed, the mid-upper gunner there, but he didn't have a gun to fire. But anyway, he was with us, and he got me to stay on staff at this Dulag Luft. It was right in the town, the city of Frankfurt, and the food there wasn't too bad because we were so close to Switzerland that the lines of communication were pretty close, and our Red Cross parcels came through pretty regularly. And that was quite a treat for me after being in these other bloody holes that they kept me in. And
this was your 4th prison.
Yeah, that Dulag Luft there would be, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. And anyway, being right in Frankfurt, that was from the middle of October until the 22nd of March that I was there. And during that period of time, we had 13 major air raids. And believe you me, that's as scary as anything you ever want to go through, is an air raid. And all we had were slit trenches out there to shelter ourselves.
Your own prison camp was bombed.
Yeah. Well, all right. It wasn't hit during the 12 previous raids, but on the 13th raid, we were flattened. There wasn't one building left standing in that whole camp. Everything was flattened, and we come out of our shelter and looked at bomb craters that would take this room and that room together, like, you know, and just got it right out.
How did you escape the bombs?
Well, we were at this particular, and it was the first time I guess we were in it. They had just previously built a concrete shelter, but on top of the ground. It wasn't dug down and someone, it was on top of the ground. And they piled a little earth up on the side of it. And that night, well, all hell broke loose. That was ooh. But after we got out, as I said, there wasn't a building left standing. There was all kinds of holes in the ground, and you look down, you'd see the tail of a bomb that hadn't exploded. And you were hearing them going off in the city, delayed action bombs. And of course, you couldn't get away from there. You'd get away from one, and you're into another one, like. And anyway, they did manage to get us out of there. It had to be later that afternoon they got us out, because we didn't stay there overnight. No. The first night was overnight, but not. Anyway, they got us together and marched us out of the camp through the city of Frankfurt to the railway station. And there we were getting attacked by civilians, because they knew who we were and who was doing all their bombing. But the guards managed to keep them off us enough so that nobody really got hurt, but they wanted to get at us, yeah. Anyway, all right, we were...
You started moving into Germany deeper, did you?
Now they took us from Frankfurt by train. This is cattle cars, say, yeah, and we were about a week or so on the train going up to Latvia. They called it East Prussia in those days, but it was Latvia. And it bordered on Russia, eh? Yeah. And anyway, we were kept there, and that's where I experienced D-Day, was up in Latvia. I'm calling it Latvia. Lithuania is where it was, not Latvia. And the Russian front got too close to us. We could hear their guns, and so they herded us all together again, put us on another train, and shipped us down into Poland. And we were up a place called Toruń, which is up north of Warsaw. And they kept us there for several months, and then the Russian front was getting too damn close to down there. So they herded us all back on the train again and brought us deeper into Germany. And we wound up then in northwest Germany. And were there for several months, and then the other front was getting too close to us, our own troops, and they herded us all together. This time marched us deeper into Germany to get away from our own forces. And
so you were on foot.
We're marching now. And Wally Reed and myself, on one of our rest stops, we got out of the gang and we hid ourselves in the woods and waited there until they got the signal, the rest of them got the signal to join ranks again and get marching. And they didn't do a thorough enough check, and we just stayed where we were, and off they marched. And there we were in the quiet, and we said, okay, we know where west is, let's start walking towards our own troops. Well, we walked and got too close, so that we were close enough to hear the Germans talking, and we hid ourselves in some bush again, and we said it's going to be better for us to stay here and let the troops pass over us than for us to get out and start trying to pick our way through them. So that's what we did. One night we were there, and some rocket firing typhoons came over and set a big fire going. And we were out in kind of a little brush. Well, the whole fields were kind of heather, like heather field. But except for our little spot where we picked, there was some high bushes, and we got hidden in the bushes. And this fire kept coming closer and closer, and it was about almost a 2-mile front on the damn thing coming at us. And we got out at night before it got too close, and we pulled up a big circle of the heather all around us to try and break the onrush of that fire front. And it worked. It got right up to us, and the whole front moved right past us. But then after everyone went by, there we were sitting out on this all black field, and a nice oasis right in the center. And we saw our situation. There's no way we can stay here. So when it got dark, we went into another woods. And once more we could hear German voices. And so we stayed put, and it turned out we were there for about 13 days without anything to eat, except trying to drink the dew off the leaves and pulling up the little new shoots of plants that were there. And I can remember one night I got deathly sick. I was nauseated like that, and oh God, I ate something that I shouldn't have eaten there.
So how did you get out of it?
Well, all right. While we were there was a Russian prisoner also escaped from his camp, and he and an American who was just shot down the night before evaded capture, and those two fellas joined up with Wally and I. And this Russian knew of a potato clamp, as they called them, and he went out this night and he got some potatoes and brought them back to us, and that was the only food we had in all that time. And we built a little fire inside of a pretty thick bush, and heated the potatoes in under the embers, and ate the potatoes. It was excellent.
But you got yourself into the hands of the of the friendlies, did you, eventually?
All right, now, this Russian went out on another occasion looking for more potatoes, and he ran into a farmer. And the farmer told him that all the Germans disappeared. They're gone. Well, he was elated at that, and he couldn't wait to get back to tell us. And he told us this story, and we couldn't believe it. But all right, we had to check that one out. So we all went out onto the main road and started walking towards the west. And a farmer in a dump cart came along, and he gave us the same story. They're all gone. Great, beautiful, because this was still Germany. Yeah. And so we started walking west again, and we heard a lot of raucous singing going on. And turned a corner, and here was a whole bunch of Russian prisoners of war, all hepped up on vodka, I guess, and they were as happy as you could ever hope to see anybody. Yeah, great, they're gone, yeah.
The war was over?
For them, for us, that was it. The next, we kept on walking, and we came across a convoy of trucks, and the first truck in the convoy was their grub wagon. And they saw our plight, and they stopped and threw us some hardtack. It's kind of a big wafer biscuit, and can of bully beef, and
so it was all over.
That was it. That was it. So eventually they took us into an abandoned German camp, and we slept in some of their beds that night. The next day they got us aboard a Sterling aircraft and flew us back to England. But it was flying that first, getting into that aircraft, and then we were going down the runway to take off. Well, he got it up all right, but his right wing went down, and he couldn't straighten it up. And oh, God, don't tell me I got this far, and this is going to be it. Well, he struggled, but finally, I don't know what was happening. There was something wrong with his tabs or something, but anyway, he finally got her straightened out, and there we were on our way to England.
You were safe.
Oh, happy day. Yeah. No, I better cut her short there somewhere. That's
quite a story.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
All right. I was kept in England for, a couple of weeks or so, and then spent D-Day up in Dundee in Scotland. Yeah.
It takes a while to process you and get you back
Yeah,
to
that's
Canada, right?
Yeah, right.
So you came back, you set up your life, you worked here, lived here.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, that's when I came back home, then went to St. FX for the first year, came down to Halifax in '46, got organized with my pharmacy course.
But in 1970, was it?
71 or 72. Yeah, I went back.
Why?
I always wanted to, yeah. And
how did you meet up with Madame Zaney?
all right, we had written corresponded in the meantime. Yeah. And I through letters I could let you see, but that's going to hold you up to no. There was letters there. One letter written by the doctor, Dr. Lupinoff, was telling me that his brother-in-law is in that picture that I showed you, the big wooden frame picture.
Okay.
Yeah, he was picked up, taken to Buchenwald, I guess it was, and there he died in Buchenwald. Yeah.
Well, where did you meet Madame Zaney when you went back?
All right, she was in the place called Noyon, and it was running a little, I'll call it a seed store.
Okay.
It was kind of she sold plants and stuff like
Now,
that.
was she the one who took you out to see the salvage?
Yes,
wreckage?
Yes, with the help of some locals that knew where it was.
The locals knew about your plane.
Oh yeah, they knew, and they were able to take us right to the spot. Because some of them, I spoke to the one fellow there that described the happenings overhead to me, just exactly as it was happening. And he said, "There you fellows were firing back and forth, and what a racket it was." And we saw, they saw us going into flames, and saw the parachutes coming out, and.
So when you walked,
So that's Father Harry, and he knew the hour of the morning it was, and I said, "Yep, that was us." God.
So you walked into the woods. You walked into the woods towards the wreckage.
Yeah.
It was the same day, wasn't it? April 14th.
Oh, all right. Yes. That's another funny happening. Yes, it was. Yeah.
Tell me about finding the wreckage.
Well, we had to walk through this marshland, and one of the local French fellows brought us right to it.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, that was quite an experience. I couldn't believe that would still be around at this stage in history. But there it was. I picked up a piece, like you saw in the picture there, of the aircraft itself. And pieces, of course, those pieces that you saw in there were mounted by one of the local French over there. Yeah,
So when you picked up your piece of the plane, what did that feel like?
Oh, yes. Well, it just, you could hardly credit. When it really happened, you said, well, that has gone into oblivion. Nobody will ever find that out in the wilds like this. But it weren't so. It was there.
Must have been something to...
Oh, it was. It was an unbelievable experience to know that after 28 years, that thing's still sitting around there. A lot of it was taken by a local farmer and stored out in the back of his barn.
Right. And your relationship with Madame Zaney, what was it like to meet her again?
Oh, yeah, very emotional. Very emotional, yeah. She, we walked into her store. She didn't know we were going to come, no. And she was busy waiting on a customer, so my wife and I stood back to let her finish her transaction. And she saw us standing aside and was looking and going on with her business, and then all of a sudden she opened her mouth, Jan, as she called me, and she was really excited, much more than we were. Yeah, but it was a very nice happening, yeah. So after that, she came back and visited me here. Well, you saw the, yeah.
She came here to visit you in Halifax?
Yeah, she was right here, yeah.
And how was that?
And then also the other lady that helped us get our photographs taken, she came here, yeah.
So you made...
How do you repay people like that? You can't, huh?
Sorry?
How do you repay people like that? I just say you can't. No. But anyway, Madame Zaney's gone now. She's, yeah.
She saved your life.
That's right, yeah. Well, I'll not so much save my life, but at least cause a turn in my life. I mean, I could have been recaptured or got captured and sent to prison camp earlier than I did. Yeah. She just, but forever grateful. Forever grateful. Yeah. It could have turned out different, but the way it did turn out, here I am sitting here in good health talking to you now. That's the bottom line, isn't it? Yes. A friend prison in Paris, that was my first contact with the Geneva Convention prisoner of war type of fella. previous to that, I wasn't covered by the Geneva Convention. I was a civilian, caught in civilian clothes, was threatened in my interrogations that they were going to shoot me, and which they had a right to do. I had no identification to say that I am who I say I am. And
so, which prison did you write letters from?
That was the first one was Dulag Luft, Frankfurt, where I got bombed out of.
Wow.
That one there, I wrote my first letter home.
To your mother?
And yeah, and up until then, they wrote me off. They, except my mother. Everybody else wrote me off but my mother. And she said, no, he's all right. She wouldn't accept the fact that I was gone. But when Parky got released a few days before me, maybe a week or so before me, and he wrote home when he got to Dulag, just like I did, and he told his mother that I was okay. So his mother got on the phone and called my mother and said that I was okay. So that was the big good news for them.
Where was Parky from?
Parky was from Toronto.
No.
Toronto, yeah.
But your mother went for a couple of years,
not knowing. That's right. That they wrote me off. Yeah. Well, they got the telegram saying, you know, that they had to presume that I was gone, and well, they had that first one, and then they had a follow-up saying that after this length of time, we'll have to assume he's gone.
What did you write in your first letter back home?
Oh, dear. I don't remember. I think my brother in Montreal, Eddie, has it in his possession. Yeah.
Well, you've got some letters here that you with your pictures. There's one letter.
Yeah, I'm even forgetting what that one was now.
Okay.
I'm forgetting. Yeah, it was among my souvenirs there, so I forget what it was, but yeah, that was an oh happy day for the folks at home to realize. Yeah.
And when you got home, what was the reunion like?
Yeah, that's right, a big reunion at home. That's right. Yeah. Funny, when I caught the train in Montreal to come home, at the station, I met my first cousin, a neighbor, who was also in the Air Force and did, I don't know, his 13 trips, 14, 15 trips, bombing raids, and got through them okay.
Yeah, this was your first run.
That was my first run, yes. I did a leaflet raid over France previous to that one, but this was the first one over Germany, and all right, I saw it all.
You did?
In one run, yeah.
So, and you were hit over Germany.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you parachuted down into France.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right.